Today I'm going to do a quick video on how to apply body filler to minor dents and also how to spray base coat, clear coat on your car. Actually, I have a very detailed video series on how to do this. It starts from how to disassemble your paint gun, how to clean it, body filler, how to apply it. It's very detailed. It's very long. It's 6 series. Each video is 6 videos in that series, and each video is about 20 minutes long. So if you want to, if you're a very beginner, I suggest you start with that video. I put a link in the description for this video. But in this video, I'm going to try to move faster, go through the steps quickly, and just stick to the most important steps, okay? Okay, so if you have a small dent on your panel, you need to sand it down with either 80 or 60 grit, and you need to sand it down thoroughly. You don't necessarily have to get to metal, but you want to make sure it's thoroughly sanded. Also, the surrounding areas within an inch of the dent need to be sanded as well, okay? And next, you need to use some grease and wax remover to clean the area that you're going to be applying body filler to, okay? Next, we apply body filler. You want to make sure you cover all the areas that are the metal is exposed with body filler. But if you are not going to be applying body filler to the areas that are exposed, you're going to have to spray that with self-etching primer. Also try to smooth out your body filler, that way you cut down on the sanding time when it's time to sand it. Also, don't be afraid to wipe down any excesses that you get in areas that you don't need to sand down or that you don't have a dent, okay? Okay, next, after our Bondo dries, it's time to start sanding it down. We're going to sand it down with 80 grit, and what you would need to use is, since this is in a curved area, you would need to use a block that's longer than your damaged area, and also a block that's somewhat flexible. Thing is, I don't have that block, and I don't want to spend $30, $40 to get that, so I'm going to use whatever I have. This is not the right way to do it. This might not come out right as a result of this, but this is the way I do it. But if you want to do it the right way, you need to go buy that block. What I'm going to use is this piece of hose. It's somewhat flexible, but it's pretty firm too. And I've also taped the end of it so it doesn't rub the rubber doesn't rub into the Bondo and damage that. And what I'm going to do is just wrap this in sanding paper. Wrap it tight, and then since it's got some flex to it, we can kind of shape this curved area, match it with the rest of it. And we're gonna, when you start sanding, you're gonna keep half of it on this side, and then the other half on the sanded on the area that has Bondo on it. And you go this way, then you go this way too, until it's you sand down, and then you're gonna start seeing your low and high spots. And then, for the low spots, you're going to need to put some more, another skim of Bondo. And if you got any high spots, you could tap them down with a hammer and then apply Bondo over it. Okay? But for now, we're going to sand this down with 80 grit sandpaper. Okay, and here's how it looks like after sanding. As you can see, we got some low spots here, so we're going to apply some body filler around these areas, and here we got a high spot. These areas, they're not really high spots because I try to sand more here because of the just to get the edge out. Same here for these areas. But yeah, this is a high spot, so we're going to hammer this in a little bit with our hammer, and then apply another skim of body filler to these areas here and also here. Okay? Okay, and there's our second coat. Now we just wait for this to dry, then we sand it down again. You might have to do this another 1 or 2 times to get it exactly right, or get a perfect smooth surface on this panel. Okay? So we still have another low spot here, so we're going to do another skim. Also, I'm going to do a light skim on all these areas that the metal is showing, okay? Okay, next we're gonna start sanding it down. We're gonna bump it up to 220 in my case, but you know, it's probably a better idea to go to 180 and then do another step. But I'm just skipping to 220 because I don't have any 180 grit sanding paper right now. But you want to make sure when you sand, you go over all the sanding marks of when you put 80 grit. Okay, and again, since this is 280, you need to spend some more time than you normally would. Also, it's a good idea to start setting up. We should have probably done this earlier, but you need to stop setting your parameters because, like, if you're doing 80 grit and then you go with your 80, you're not paying attention, and you go here. Well, then the next sanding paper, you need to go over that, cover that, and past that. And then again, for the next step, you need to go past that so your repair area can grow very quickly if you're not careful. Okay, so it's a good idea to set up a parameter. And then again, you want to make sure you go over all of your 80 grit sanding marks with this. Okay. Okay, also in this step, what you're trying to do is not only get rid of the 80 grit scratches, but also get rid of any lines, like anything you can feel with your finger, with your hands, you know, especially around the edges. You don't want to feel a bump or an uneven surface. Okay, so if you do feel it, you need to get rid of it with this. Okay, next step normally would be to apply a thin layer of glazing putty to this area that we've applied bonded to. That glazing putty gets rid of any kind of, small holes, deep scratches, and whatnot. Gets more imperfections out. I don't have one right now. I don't have any glazing putty right now, but you know, if you do your sanding right, you're very thorough. You spend some time at it. You can get away with not using it. What we're going to do next is actually, I'm going to just apply primer to all the area that we applied bonder to, and going to apply 3 coats, and then we're going to sand that down again with 220 grit, and then if you still can see imperfections, any kind of uneven, you know, especially around the edges, any kind of uneven area, we're going to keep repeating that until we get a smooth surface here, especially the transition from the bonded area to the area we didn't do any repair needs to be super smooth. Okay. Okay, and the primer I'm going to use is going to be this TransStar white primer, and it's always a good idea to choose a color that's as close as to your base coat as possible, so it'll just be a lot easier to cover this when we go to paint this. Okay. Okay, make sure you shake your can pretty well. Also wait 10 to 15 minutes after each coat, okay? Also, you want to be moving when you're applying this. Don't stand in one place and just press this. Okay, after our primer has dried, we're going to go over with the 22 grit, and you know, after you put the primer, you can see imperfections a little bit better. You know, I can see that I missed some 80 grit sanding marks around here. Also, this area could use some more sanding. There's a lot of deep marks in there, deep sanding marks. So yeah, I'm just going to spend more time with this. Hopefully I'll be able to get all of them out. Okay? Okay, so since we kind of cut through the primer here, trying to get to those deep scratches, and also the deep scratches we got around this area, gonna repeat this step. So another 3 coats of primer, then we're gonna sand it down again, okay? Now we're gonna go over it again with 220 grit, but I'm gonna switch to this smaller block because we're pretty much done shaping the panel. Now we're just trying to get all those sand scratches out, and this little smaller block, it's going to help more with getting the sand scratches out, okay? Okay, so we got a couple of these areas again showing some Bondo, so just gonna do another couple of coats of primer, but then we're done with the 220 grit and we're gonna go to the next step, okay? Okay, next step we're gonna switch to 320 grit and we're gonna go over all the areas we sanded down. Okay, make sure you cover all the areas, cover all your 220 grit sand scratches with this. Make a couple of passes. If you go through the primer again, you can always just spray a little bit more primer in that area and go over it again with 320. Okay, next, we're gonna need to go over our 320 grit sanding scratches with 400 grit or 500. I prefer 400 grit. But we need to make sure we cover all the 320 grit sanding scratches and we go past them a little bit. So we're gonna remove these, but you'll probably be able to see where you sanded to. But if you can't see it, make sure you make a mental note of where you have sanded already, so your repair area doesn't grow too much. Okay. And here's our 400 grit sandpaper. You can also wet sand this, but you can do it either way. It doesn't really matter. So I'm just gonna do it dry, okay? And you want to make sure, since this is gonna be white, white is a little harder to spot deep scratches and whatnot. So you want to make sure you start at one place and then work your way all the way across, covering the whole area, okay? And after you sand this with the 400 grit, we're done with our repair area. You want to keep in mind if there's, your base coat will cover only 400 grit sanding scratches. So if there's deeper scratches here, there's things you can fill with your finger, or if this area you haven't been thorough enough with your sanding, once you put your base coat, it's gonna, jump right out at you. White is a little bit more giving. It's harder to spot, scratches and whatnot. But if your color is silver, you're gonna be able to spot those sanding scratches, those deep scratches right away. So take a closer look, get down, try looking at different angles. If you spot any scratches, just go over it. If you need to, just spray more primer. Go over it with your sanding paper until you get to a smooth finish, and then we're done with this area, with our repair area. For the rest of the panel, we're gonna sand the whole panel down with 1500 grit sanding paper. We're gonna make sure that 1500 grit sanding paper comes to close to our repair area. So because you will need to have the whole panel either sanded with 1500 grit paper for your clear coat or 400 grit paper for when you go to spray your base coat. And for wet sanding, you can always use a soft pad, or you can also just fold this and just use your palm of your hand, lay it flat and then start wet sanding, okay? Okay, so after a couple hours of wet sanding and then buffing, here's our final product. I still need to go over this with the buffer another 1 or 2 passes, but you know, here it is. It looks pretty good. The reflections are clear for the most part, but once I finish going over with the buffer, it should look even better. And this video is just to show you the basic steps involved in painting a panel. If you want to see this in more detail, you should check out the 6 video series I have on how to paint your car. That's a step-by-step video series, and I'll put a link to the first video in the description for this video. Okay? So yeah, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe if you want to see more like it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.